So, friends, you don't get an occasion to grill and interrogate your boss of 19 years. So, I have that opportunity today, and I'm going to make the most of it, yeah. So, with your permission.
That means I'm still your boss.
Always. By the way, I still call him sir and not Patu, huh? So, that's how this conversation is going to go. But without further ado, let me start. And Patu, let's start from, sorry, sir. Let me start from the beginning. Your father was an employee of the Indian Railways. Your mother was a doctor in the army. So this services background is where you come from. And today you're an entrepreneur. How did that upbringing help you set up Lemon Tree? And what are those, lessons of life that you brought into your company, especially when you were starting it up?
No, I think, you see, my dad was basically, I think no matter what he said, he was a communist at heart. And so communists believe that, you should not make money. The nation or the state should make. So actually, it was, I think, in rebellion to my father that I thought of becoming an entrepreneur. And my mother gave me all the values that I needed. But funnily, neither of them played a role in the setting up of Lemon Tree other than try to dissuade me through my sisters and my wife. And they said, is he crazy? Is he this? He's got 2 tiny kids, so on and so forth. And it was serendipity, actually. And the early rebelliousness of my relationship with my parents that followed through.
So many of you may know, Patu's sisters are great theatre personalities, Lilith and Lucian Dubey. But Patu, did you ever try your hand at acting?
I was very chikna when I was young. So
did you play the female role?
Yes, so in Columbus, in class 3, they cast me as Cinderella or something, if I remember right. And so I was on stage, I went there, I had learnt all my lines, I was in a pink dress. And when I went there and the lights came on like this and I looked and I saw all these classmates of mine, I froze. And it's actually a fact that after that, I have an abhorrence to coming on stage. So really, you can imagine how much I had to tranquilize myself to be here today.
Which everyone knows is not true. But tell me, is there a similarity between acting on stage? I know you barely acted that day on stage and leading a business.
No, but I think I'm naturally an actor because, you see, I have to put on so many hats. Once you get married and have kids, then there are you are anyway a schizophrenic, right? And then you start a business and you fall in love with everybody who comes and takes the leap of faith to come and work with you, especially because you don't have a lot of capital. So I think you act many parts, and it's genuinely what I feel in that moment that I display, and that could be, you could say, multiple facets, different parts of me. Actually, I'm serious, Vikram.
Some of them can get a little scary, guys. So, Patu has often quoted very famously, if you're 20 and not a communist, you have no heart. If you're 40 and not a capitalist, you have no brain. So, Patu, I want to ask you this, because, when Lemon Tree was being set up, it was the first company in the hospitality space which had an ESOP program. So, tell us about it. How do you think of it? How do you think about sharing wealth with employees? And do you think it was, responsible for the success that you achieved?
Look, success is always, teamwork in our space. So it was definitely our entire team, of which you were such an important part, that was responsible for our success. But when I look back on it, I think it was just sheer gratitude. When I built the first hotel in Udyog Vihar, and I was so short of cash, and I was so grateful to those first 70, 80 people who joined me, mostly from the Taj, as you know. And they were all very young. I think Rahul is here, he was one of the first. And I didn't know how to say thank you because I couldn't pay a high salary. I know the business, as by nature, is not a high-paying industry. So how do you say thank you? It was just a thank you. And I said, and I think Rahul can correct me there, he was an early joinee. I said that, listen, this hotel is going to make money. I'm sure of that. And these shares will give you some dividend. And, and someday you'll thank me for it. But nobody believed me. We gave roughly 850 crores worth of shares to, I think, about 800 people. If I remember right, the top 10 guys got 200 crores. So I think later, a lot of people told me thank you, and I was very particularly pleased when I learned about 50 or 70 people bought houses. Okay, some of them went to competition and then started competing against us, but that's besides the point.
Some set up their own companies.
True. But that pleases me. Actually, I never mind anybody leaving Lemon Tree and going to do their own thing. And many of them have come back to us. As long as you've gone with the right intentions and the right way, you're always welcome to come back. You know, about 20% of our hires are actually returning employees.
So this is early 2000. A 1 crore salary back then was unheard of. Patu was at 80 Karni, doing extremely well. And then midlife crisis hits him. And he leaves it all with the opposition of his dad not being happy and with the idea of starting a hotel company or starting a business. So Patu, take us through it. How did that happen? That's the most interesting part.
So I had a theory. My theory was that if you design a hotel ground up, and you don't have an international or domestic brand or anything, how do you make 18% yield on cash? That was my only theory. And I'm an engineer by background. I was in IIT. I did a minor in architecture. I ran hotels. I was fortunate enough to run 20, 25 hotels with the Taj. I also did my MBA. And then when I became a consultant, I actually started thinking to myself that why is it that there are only 5-star hotels in India and very few non-5-star hotels? I think 82% of the hotels in India branded in 2002 were 5 stars. So it was like, imagine the airline sector, if 80% or 82% of the seats are business class, then there is some reason why there are only 18% economy class seats. And the reason is that nobody knows how to make money in India with the high factor costs or input costs in the mid-market. And therefore, there is no mid-market. So I thought it was a pleasant challenge. And I realized very early on that the 4 key costs which you need to manage are obviously the cost of the project, and that too in time, in cost, in the right quality. Number 2 is the maintenance cost long term, which is don't spend money on renovation over time. The third was how do you manage wage bill? And fourth was how do you manage inflation? Which means how do you variabilize as much as you can? And I just heard in the previous thing, Atul, my old friend, saying that you get a very little return. Then Atul, I must tell you, this year with a 4,500 crore investment, I'll do 1,000 crores of EBITDA. It is possible to do 22%. It is because you must know how to build the hotel. And I don't follow brand standards. I first design the hotel, and that's my brand. So there is a slight difference in the way I look at it. And I do believe it is possible to make a super profitable hotel, which across a cycle should give you an 18% yield on cash. You know?
So that is possible in our business, and the results of Lemon Tree shows you that. But Patu, you were building the first hotel, you needed 9 crores. You famously got rejected for a loan because you had a ponytail.
Correct.
Tell us about those days. There's some
I should
funny
ask
anecdotes.
Rahul, he's got a ponytail still. How are you getting a loan? But anyway, I got rejected. And I had nice credentials there, IIT, IIM, you know, Tata Administrative Service, all that stuff. I just got rejected because of the ponytail. So I remember I used to play, in those days, Mr. Deepak Parekh used to be a director on the board of Indian Hotels. And I had just, you know, a couple of years before that left Indian Hotels as the chief operating officer. So I picked up the phone and called him. And I said, you know, Deepak, nobody's giving me a loan. So I will never forget. He said that, I'll give it to you, but you must personally guarantee it. I said, done, on the phone. And he gave me my first loan, okay? And so it was, I think, you know, what I realized from life is so much is relationships, so much is your chemistry with people. And while everybody can say professionalism is important, this and that is important, ultimately, you know, and this is true as I've gotten older, guys, so I become more philosophical, it is the relationships that carry you through. And trust.
Completely. So how did you think of the name Lemon Tree?
So, when I started the company, I thought I'm going to sell it one day. And that hotel I was making, and I said, I want a brand which is easy to dispose of. I didn't want to call it with my name. Somebody recommended call it Patu's Hotel or something, some crazy thing like that, or Ponytail or something. And when I was in Etikani, I'd worked on 2 mergers. And I found that when you acquire a company and you integrate, the rebranding becomes quite expensive. And it's actually captured as a cost of the acquisition price. So it was just an economic decision. Firstly, that I should have a name which is sufficiently generic that it is easy to integrate by anybody who acquires it. Number 2 was that I wanted something which was fun, fresh, refreshingly different. So those are the brand words that were there. So we looked at a whole lot of names, and then I finally called 20 of my closest friends and their wives, and we had a beer and pizza session. I put up all these names, and then when everybody was sufficiently drunk, we agreed on Lemon Tree.
So how did Red Fox happen?
Well,
Red Fox.
I don't know why my daughter still thinks I'm a fox. Okay, I'm not, I can assure you. Though I have a very bushy tail. And
You can see me nodding my head, huh?
that's Indian to say yes, by the way. I used to turn red in the sun because I was always building, some hotel in the sun and so on. And she said Red Fox. So at that time there was no Red Fox brand, but I know that when I did the first one and you were there, Vikram, the Red Fox in Jaipur, everybody told me, are you mad? I mean, Indians, they'll call it the Lal Lombadi. And I said, let it be, it doesn't matter, because my daughter has named it. And years later, I was very pleased to see one day my daughter talking to her friends. I was eavesdropping, and I normally do that with them. And she was saying that, Red Fox was my contribution. So.
And it was, by the way. So, Patu, tell us about the furry, 4-legged members of your team. There was Sparky on the board, assistant vice
chair dog.
Assistant vice chair dog. So tell us, today every hotel of Lemon Tree, the 100+ hotels, has a dog mascot. Tell us about the story there.
So,
And these all street dogs adopted by that hotel.
So we have about, 200-300 dogs. And, I've always loved dogs and cats. But my sister, unfortunately, was allergic to cats. And later my wife. So I had to very sadly give up the cat affair. So the first dog, and you were there, some of you who are here were my colleagues then. So when I started the company, the office was in my sister's apartment. And there was a dog my son just picked up from the road and brought. And this dog and I had a very strong affinity, Sparky. She was the love of my life, as I actually genuinely mean. And Sparky used to come every day down. I used to stay above that. Come down to the office with me when I came, which was about noon, right? I always came late. And then she would sit on one chair in the office, my office, sitting there till I left. And it was total love and, public displays of affection, stuff that would make you all go, ew. But when she passed, by then I had started saying we'll put dogs, and I think many of you guys only said let's do it. So we had dogs, specific responsibilities, they were paid salaries, they were taken care of, and I think it actually became a very integral element of our brand with our customers.
So 2006, the first big investment happens in Lemon Tree. Warburg comes on board. I think the company was then valued at about 1,000 crores. How did life change after that for Lemon Tree and your vision for the company?
See, actually, when I built the first hotel in 2004 for 9 crores, it was, in the first year only, it was making 2-3 crores. So it became clear that, we could build more hotels, and some of the early, in my mind, I think of them as co-founders. They said, why don't we build a small chain? So we bought a second plot in Gurgaon, third, fourth, fifth, and in about, I think, 4 years, we had 5 hotels and I think 20 crores of EBITDA or something, which was actually an enormous return then. So when Warburg came, they invested, I think, 300 crores, and post-money, the valuation was 1,100 crores. Suddenly, we had real capital. Okay, I didn't have to go borrow money, I didn't have to cut my ponytail, etc. So we deployed that capital, and all on the same principle, which is take less debt, build cash flow, use the cash flow to fund future debt. So the only thing we did different, I think, from most people is we would build a hotel and use that cash flow to borrow money on the next hotel. So that's how we funded ourselves, as you might remember. So what it changed fundamentally was our ability to go beyond 5 small hotels. And within 10 years, we had, I think, 30 hotels. And that's when APG came in and put in 1,500 crores. And we did a joint venture with them. So I think what mattered to us was we didn't want to partner with developers. I was very clear about that. I wanted to be the developer. I wanted to be the brand owner. I wanted to be everything, the whole value chain. And I needed an institutional investor. And the understanding is one day we'll go public. The first company, Lemon Tree. And now in the next 1 year, we'll take the next company public, which has actually the largest amount of EBITDA, which is Flio. And then we'll take our digital company public, which is 3 years out. So if you can do that, then you have the entire value chain and split into segments where investors specifically want to go. Who wants to go into distribution on a large scale? Who wants to go into a brand, OpCo? Who wants to go into a PropCo? So Lemon Tree's assets go straight to a PropCo. And we just split the entire group into 3 parts. And obviously go completely debt-free, though our debt is going to be less than 1.5 times our EBITDA this year, next year. So, and then go aggressively into growth, applying the same principles of development in what I think will be the golden years of Indian hospitality, which is the next 10 years when there will be a structural shift in demand and consumption of mid-market hotels.
So, Patu, you've been very gung-ho about franchise of late. You set up a franchise division, you've got someone to head it. What's your view on franchise? Because, very often we talk about franchise diluting the brand, about, the quality of the product, the owner. There's so many, so much talk about not franchising hotels. So what's your view on that space, and how do you think you'll be able to control quality, control the, the compliances, control all of that?
So, I told you that we have a design for mid-market hotels where we think we can get in 18% return, right?
Over a cycle.
Over a cycle, which means top of cycle, of course, it's some insane number. But anyway, so my view is that if you can design the hotel ground up, you can get this return. Suppose I acquire a shell, which is a brownfield, so to speak, so not greenfield, and I do my own number there, then I find that I'm compromising because of poor design, or not my design, I should say, about 20%. So that 18 becomes 14, 14 and a half. Then if I take a ready hotel and pay for the capital invested in that hotel, which I don't really want to, but I do, then the return gets further compromised by another 10, 15%. So I have a whole algorithm or a model or a formula that tells me where I will be.
Or your favorite word, waterfall.
Yeah, I do a waterfall completely. And now I've tried to actually create a little machine learning thing on it in our digital company, which you will start seeing in 6 months. So the bottom line is, what is the deal with franchise? Why am I interested in franchise is, I don't want to risk the Lemon Tree brand. It's today, with great honesty and I hope some degree of modesty, I can say, Lemon Tree hotels break even at 20 to 22% occupancy. I think you've all experienced it, those who have worked with me. Break even means OPEX. If I take regular debt equity of 1:1, then we, including debt, etc., we break even at 40. If I have to repay that debt over 10 years, then I break even at 57 to 60%, assuming normalized ARRs. So here's the deal. At 60%, I'm giving myself a very nice return on equity because I'm repaying my debt. Yeah. So why do I do it is because the brand today pulls so many customers in any new hotel we open in that category. Now, if we go into 5-star, obviously we have to compete a little more like we are doing in Aurika, but in the 2.5 to 4-star space, honestly, we have the best in class in India in economic returns and access to customers. So here's the deal. Lemon Tree, we will not dilute. We will go after roughly 200, 300,000 rooms in India, which we think broadly meet Lemon Tree standards, because if I build the hotel, it's 10 on 10 on my standards. If I acquire a brownfield, it's 8, 9 on 10. If I lease, it's also 8, 9 on 10. If I manage, I might go as low as 7. But I won't go, and I'm using these illustratively, I won't go below 7 on 10. And that's why my brand will remain fairly coherent. But what about the 1 million rooms, and you know about them, or 1.2 million rooms, which are 30, 32 room hotels. We've discussed this in detail. Why can't we go for them? Now, they are very different in product, very different in service, you know, run by individuals. It's normally run by the father's son or daughter or in-laws or somebody. You know, it's actually a business for one member of a family who is normally locally a prominent family. They don't want to give up management, number one. They are destroyed in three areas. Distribution, quality certification in a customer's mind, and pricing therefore. And third is in tech. How about I solve for all these three? And my compact or contract with them is, I'm going to put in place a very nice tech-enabled architecture and stack where you can I'll give you everything you need in your hotel tech-wise on an annuity basis. Okay, so you don't have to invest capex. I will take it all and give it to you. Number two, my NPS will be completely based on feedback, which is anonymous. And if you go below a certain score, then you will have an opportunity to cure, and if you don't, I'll kick you out. Okay, but because you are tied with me in tech and tied with me in distribution, and assuming I'm good at generating revenue, then it becomes painful, and therefore we are aligned actually, right? So I want to go after those 1.2 million rooms, that's all.
Yeah. So something which is closest to Patu's heart is the inclusive workforce. And today I think it's about 20% of Lemon Tree's employees. So Patu, talk about it. How did the first employee come on board? How did you think of the idea? Tell us about it, because that I know is something very close to your heart.
Well, it was completely, so much of my life is by chance. And fortunately by good chance, which is serendipity. So basically, when Warburg invested with me, we had 5 hotels, you were there. And I remember I called our HR guy and said, take 2 deaf guys and employ them in one of our hotels in East Delhi as a thank you. And I promptly forgot about it. 2 months later, the mother of one of them came and invited me for her son's wedding. With a huge bouquet, and cried like mad in my office. And I said, why are you crying? Because your son's getting married. She said, if you hadn't got this job, he would have never gotten married. His kids would have not been born. He would have gone insane. So I was amazed to hear this. So I remember we had a meeting. And it was not only my decision, you were all there. And let's hire 100. Then we got 100, and he said 500, then 1,000, then 2,000, and so on. So we hired a lot of people. I'm most proud of the fact that because we hired people who others would not hire, after we hired them in 2 years, they would leave us and go at double the salary elsewhere. So that way, I think there are about 20,000 people who joined us and left, who were unemployable. And that gives me a lot of satisfaction.
So Patu, what next for Lemon Tree after Patu Keswani?
I'm thinking of promoting Sparky's daughter as the next chair dog. I have no idea. I tell you, I'm not emotionally attached to to anything. I'm most attached to my relationship. So can't answer that, but I hope the company does well.
What's the one thing that you failed at?
There are so many I can't answer.
Which hotel chain would you bet your money on except yours?
I think,
This is my chance to get back for 19 years of grilling here.
maybe ALIVAA.
Guys, big round of applause.
I don't like the fact that, he's intimidating me, because when I was sitting in that room having a cup of tea, suddenly he took out a folder and took out 20 pages and he said, if we have time, I'm going to ask you many questions. So.
Okay, we have time for one last question, and I'll then open it to the audience if Mandeep permits. Okay, so Patu, I'm trying to put you on the spot. Which of your founding team members are you most fond of? Who are you most proud of? And which one will you hire back? So there are 3 questions.
Well, I'm lucky, out of the first 100 who joined Lemon Tree, I think more than 50 are still with us.
Yeah.
Right? And of the other 50, truth be told, they are all doing very well. I mean, there are guys here who become super successful in other hotel companies. Some have become entrepreneurs outside it. One guy is, in fact, Car Dekho ka founder.
Yes, Rajat.
So there are, and then another guy is Ashwin, who's become the head of the Dharavi development for Adani's. I mean, these multi-billion dollar investments and, 30, 40-year-old guys. So I think out of the first lot, a whole lot became entrepreneurs, including you, Rahul, who went back to his alma mater. So I would personally take anybody and everybody back, as long as basic etiquette and manners and when you divorce somebody, this is how I regard it actually, then you go the right way.
So Pantu, thank you so much.